Hi everybody, this is Damien from Legend Life. As you know, we're all about sharing inspirational stories about people living their best life. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with JUNE LOUKS, also known as Shanti. Shanti is a body...
Shanti.
Shanti, sorry, it's the accent. I'll
Shanti.
blame it on the accent. So Shanti is a body, movement, and meditation teacher. She's also a mother of 4. She surfs. She also is the author of a number of books on plant-based and whole food eating. She's also a beekeeper and also has her own organic garden in her backyard. So how are you today, Shanti?
Oh, Damien, I'm great. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Very good, and we're happy to have you. So to get started, maybe you can give us a little bit of about yourself, your background, how you got yourself into health and wellness.
Yeah, okay, well, it's been quite a journey, and it all started when I hit 40. So it's kind of apropos that you know your platform is like there is life after 40. So what happened was I have had migraines. I had migraines ever since I started menstruating, really. And they became more and more debilitating until here I am, 40, with 4 young children. And I think between January and June, I had something like 50 days that I wasn't functioning because of these migraines. And I actually picked myself up out of the car, or I picked myself up, I got into the car. It had been 4 days of migraines. I put she was about 1-year-old, littlest girl in the car, because I had some errands to do. And I was driving and I wasn't feeling well. I got nauseous. I put the car into park and I passed out. And that was, Damien, the wake-up call. And I think we all get wake-up calls, and hopefully we hear the message. And I didn't know what to do or where to turn. Things weren't working, and yet I didn't want to go on the medication because, you know, one of the side effects for migraine medication is death. And that just wasn't going to be an option at this point. And so there was this guy, he went to our church when we were going to church, and he was one of the more elderly people, but he wasn't elderly. He was very youthful. So his age was different than his biological expression, or I should say, his biological age was different than his physical expression. And so with his youthfulness, he would give me books after church, and I would take these books and I would put them by the, I would come home, and I almost thought about just throwing them away because they were on raw food and whole foods, and it wasn't something that I was interested in. I was very attached to my foods, and that included Ben & Jerry's Heath Bar Crunch and Snickers and Oreo cookies, and I was happy with my foods. But when I hit this wall, Damien, that's when I thought, you know, I wonder what is in those books. And so long story short, it changed my life. I changed my diet. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, was to change those things that I was so near and dear to in my heart. Because foods, they're very intimate. We get very close and attached to certain things that give us pleasure. And so, it was super transformative, huge lessons, letting go of attachments, and really surrendering my will for the greater good, which really was my family, my daughters, to have their mom present and healthy. So I think what happened, then I wrote the book, We wrote a couple books on fresh whole foods, and I started growing my own food, and because it's hard to find food out there that isn't loaded with chemicals and
Yep.
pesticides. So that was really why. And then when I turned, it was 49, I hit another crisis, another wall. Looking back, I think what had happened was I had cleaned up my diet, but I hadn't cleaned up my gut, and I had had candida, and it had spread to all my organs. So even though I was on this whole foods, high raw diet, really good food, I hadn't yet shored up my gut, and I wasn't having enough protein. So it was another wake up call, and I had leaky gut, and the fungus had gotten to my brain. And so if I was having a conversation with you, I would be accessing all the time. I wasn't really clear thinking. It was foggy. My girls would say, okay, pick me up at this certain time, and I would forget. And there was just a lot of brain fog, and I had a lot of candida and saccharomycosis in my brain and all of my organs. So again, I'm really up against a wall. And so at this point, I didn't know what to do, and I found a yogi, and I started yoga, and it was transformative again. What he taught me was how to develop a daily practice, and I think I was lazy in that department. I would go to bed late after my Ben and Jerry's Heath Bar Crunch. Well, no, let's see. That was I would make these raw ice creams with almond milk by then, and instead of having sugar, I would maybe have maple syrup. It wasn't. It was on the path, but I've since transitioned. We grow, and we grow out of things that maybe aren't serving our highest self.
Yep.
So yeah. And so the daily morning practice, getting up at 5 a.m. and doing meditation, doing breath work, and doing movement practice that opened up, and where I was able to balance my adrenaline, balance my maybe anxiety. It became more dialing into how I was being in my body on an emotional level, because I
Yep.
think all healing starts at the emotional level. And I was very anxietal, a lot of nervous tension. And so calming that down, the yoga practice was the springboard for that.
Yep. No, brilliant. So,
Yeah.
so a lot of people reaching 40, they don't actually feel that they can change. So you've made some big changes. Obviously, you've benefited from them. So what would you say to people who, are saying, well, I'm 40, it's a little bit too late to kind of like change. I am who I am. I can't really change.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say I felt like that too. And I really didn't know what the possibilities were. And I found that with meditation, we get to see outside ourselves and outside of our busy mind and outside of even the habit of thinking. And when we can do that and step into pure awareness, turning off our mind, I think so much more becomes available. And we can then observe and be a witness and observe our tendencies, our maybe ruts, if you will. I
Yeah.
think I had them, so that's why I bring them up. And we can self-observe and just notice without judgment, is this serving me? Is it not? Why am I doing this? Look at, I don't know. I think it's easy to coast. And I think we all, when we're born, we have a certain fate, if you will, that we're all fated on some level with our um, the dynamics that we're born into.
Yep.
And yet all of us, we ultimately, we all have the same genes, and we all can create a whole new destiny separate from this fate or that path, and go on a different trajectory. And so much happens with our thinking body. You know, we have our physical body, our emotional body, and our mental, our thinking body. And by redirecting and repatterning, reconditioning, there's so much possibility with being able to change.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, great. So tell us a little bit more about the whole food, healthy eating. So what are some tips you have for people to make that transition? So you went from Snicker bars, Oreos, and all the rest to
True.
meat as well, and then now you've moved to kind of more whole
Yes.
food, organic foods, more natural. So what are some tips for making that transition?
Okay. So dialing back to when I was turning 40 and when I was at this threshold, the hardest thing was giving up sugar. I loved it. And yeah, Damien, if you asked me if I was addicted to it, I would say no, I'm not addicted, right? But take it away from me for 30 days, and I tell you, I was climbing the walls. And it's the hardest thing I've ever done, was
Yeah.
giving up sugar. Um, I don't know if you've gone through that. Um,
No, I'm not actually, I'm quite fortunate. I'm not a big sugar fan. I think from a very early age, I kind of found my sugar fix through fruits. So I was kind of
uh,
lucky.
yeah. Um, yeah, sugar, it's highly addictive, and
Yeah.
it's not good for us at all. It doesn't serve our highest self, our fullest potential. There's really no reason to eat sugar, except that it tastes good.
Yeah.
uh, and again, that's, you know, if you have a scale from our comforts and our pleasure to where we're growing, as you mentioned, and transforming. Those are maybe two opposite ends of the spectrum. So,
Yeah.
you know, there comes in a choice there. And, you know, I think, why are we here, Damon? I think, Damien, it's to grow. It's to grow into our fullest potential, to our brightest self. And sugar's just not on the list.
No, I agree. I think we're genetically programmed to want to grow and develop and become better. So it's kind of like an evolutionary trait we have. And then as humans, we now reach a point where we only feel good really if we're actually growing. Like if we're not growing, that's when we start to feel negative, depressed. So I think we
Yeah.
have to keep on moving forward. If not, that's when we start going into a slump.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, as far as moving forward, I dove into hatha yoga, and I loved it. I was a swimmer. I had residual shoulder stuff, and being a surfer,
Yeah.
that I would surf, but I had stuff in my shoulders that hurt, and and so a year and a half ago, I was having a massage treatment, and the masseuse, he suggested that I investigate bowspring, and it's a postural movement.
Okay.
And I went to check it out. And you know what was interesting, Damien, is that it was completely opposite from everything that I had learned in my yoga practice. So it was where in yoga you want to make your spine straight. Now with the bowspring, I'm learning that really we have a double S curve, and that I want to be like a spring, like a waveform. And it opened up a whole new world for me. And it's another example of just repatterning and changing even my posture. And that's become fundamental to kind of my well-being now,
Yep.
is how I move and where I, if I'm moving from my head or if I'm initiating movement from my heart or my hips. And yeah, so just
So
wanted to throw
this,
that out.
so your practice around movement is becoming more conscious of where you are with your body and understanding how you're moving. Is that the kind of teaching you do?
Well, yeah, I went in February. It was the last travel window for us, and I went to Austin and I studied with the founders, and I came away just in awe of what they had come up with. It's Desi and John uh, as movement, and continues to keep me in awe because it takes the traditional standard model that doctors, that chiropractors, and yogis all seem in alignment with, is that we want to make our spine straight.
Yeah.
But if we look at it, and in any athletic performance, if we're going to spring high, if we're going to serve and really arc up in our serve, if we're going to have the volleyball, whatever sport we're in, when we can spring in our fullest capacity, it's the most youthful. It'll keep us young,
Yeah.
but it maximizes our potential. And from all the way to the feet, how the feet, we tend to hold a lot of tension and in our fingers and our toes, and we hunch over, right? We develop this C curve, and that's, after 40, it just, that's a sign of aging when our tush tucks under,
Yeah.
right? And so it works from it's a whole system, starting with the hands and the fingers being soft, and then as I firm this, what's interesting is that I didn't have this. Okay, so I'm 55, right?
Yeah.
And when I went in February, this was super flabby, and so as I firm my inner pinky palm, I'm learning that it's related to my tricep, and that all of my fascia, when I hold it, it's called tensegrity. And in tensegrity, the fascia evenly wraps the joints. So where I had some hip issues and maybe could have been in line for a hip replacement, I've now been able to put my femurs into the socket in the way that the synovial fluid circulates.
Yep.
And it heals, and there's blood and circulation in all the joints and the arms and the shoulders, and there's movement, which I don't know, I thought that's just what happens when you get over 40, is your shoulders get stiff and you wake up in the morning. And Damien, now I wake up in the morning and I feel amazing, and everything is fluid and juicy and hydraulic.
Yep.
So that I feel like this is going to be good until I'm about 120, 140. So, right? No, and you laugh, but think about this, Damien. So animals, they will live 6 times their growth period.
Yep.
And so humans, right, our growth period is 20 years of adolescence, and then times 6, that would put us at 120. But we have a thinking body, like we can change our patterns. We have this ability to recondition, reprogram, choose a new way. And so why not?
No, I'm all for you. I'd like to live to 120. I'm not, I'm just saying, I'm just like laughing because most people would go, that's impossible. How's that possible? Like my father, he's in his 90s, so, he's done quite well. But
Yeah.
if he had actually taken on some of your approaches, he'd probably be even better condition. And that, like, he doesn't really eat healthily. He's just got good genes, I think. He hasn't maintained the exercise and maintained the mobility. And so I think this is a good lead into another question around what do you think is the secret to longevity? Because as you said, like, our objective is to reach 120. So what do you think is the secret to us reaching
Mhm.
120?
Okay, so the answer to that question is I'm right in the process right now of, this is my book
Okay, cool.
called Younger. It's Detox Your Age and Nurture Your Youth. So I'm really into that question. How much time do you have?
Just the abridged version, and then we'll come back for
We'll get
interview
to
two.
part 4, Younger and Wiser. And I put a lot of my yoga pictures in the
Yeah.
book, right? So, and like, there's no way when I was 40 that I thought I'd be doing something like that,
No, it's
which is
pretty amazing.
really exciting. Pardon?
No, it's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I'm looking at that, and then I'm going, it's time for me to work on my yoga. So I'm a ex-athlete, trained in the gym, and then I've got very much the problem you talk about, the C curve kind of thing, because like sitting at a desk all the time and then not doing enough mobility work. So I'm going, you know, if Shanti can do it, like start doing yoga at 50, why can't I start doing yoga as well and like
Uh,
my flexibility?
yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's breaking through that mental paradigm of possibility.
Yeah,
Well, okay, to answer your question, I think, as I mentioned, all healing starts at an emotional level. So for longevity, fundamentally, it's about detoxing our emotions. If we're going to move into youthfulness, we can't carry grudges with us. You don't you don't get younger holding a grudge.
no,
Yeah. And so I know for me that's been fundamentally such a big part of the journey where fears and anxiety and emotional holdings, releasing those and moving into a new place, drawing in bliss, drawing in gratitude, being just grateful for what is, being every morning that I wake up, just being grateful for being alive and grateful for breath, even
yeah,
when I didn't have my body, because I didn't have this, even 7 years ago, right?
yeah,
It was a much different situation. So, and I can, the pictures that I just showed you, I would have never dreamed that I would be doing that. So
yeah,
just so grateful. But um, it starts at an emotional level. I think it starts with forgiveness. It starts with every day, no matter what we did the day before. Maybe it wasn't our highest self, but forgiving ourselves when we can really forgive and forgive everyone in our worlds, in our path. We're all just doing the best that we can with the tools that we have today.
yeah.
And so that's, I think, fundamentally where longevity springboards from. Uh, and then detoxing our body and detoxing our mindsets. Yeah.
So yeah, you're very much more holistic kind of approach, in that it's a lot of people just focus on the physical. You're saying also take care of the emotional and mental, and then obviously the nutrition part, like eating right, organic, whole foods. So you mix all those combinations together, and then you have a better chance of having a better life going forward, don't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a practice. And longevity is not about taking glutathione and what is it, the nicotinoids. It's not about, longevity is not about, what do they call it? I don't even know. Stem cell replacement.
Okay, yep.
In my understanding, that if something is, if we have dis-ease in our life and something's not working, be it the shoulder, the gut, the heart, the whatever it is, that it's feedback. And that pain is just a cry. It's like a wake-up call, like the migraines were for me, that something needs to change. And so much of it, it's really, it's emotional. It's how we're holding maybe tension, stress, adrenals, and becoming wiser at how we're being in our bodies so that it's more sustainable, it's more nourishing, and we can really grow to our full potential, grow our glow. We can't coast anymore after 40, you know.
No, no, if we don't take care of things, we're running out of time to take care of things. So if you don't accelerate and make the changes, you'll run out of time. So no, very, very interesting points. Because I guess a lot of people, they get so busy, they don't take that time out to read the signs, like you're saying, like your body is telling you and giving you notice, you're not taking care of me. Here's your
Right.
opportunity to do something different. And we just kind of work through it and ignore it and put it off. And then eventually it's too late. We've kind of run out of that opportunity. We had that window, and our body told us, this is your window. You can do something about it. But we go, no, we're too busy. We put it off. We don't set aside the time to really take care of ourselves.
Yeah, you know, I do think though, I mean, looking at where I've come from, just to paint the picture for you at age 49, I was in back pain, my mobility was limited, my vision was deteriorating, I was in my 75 favorite foods I couldn't digest anymore.
Yeah.
So my digestion was going south, although I was bloated and really wide around the middle. And I mean, I could just go on and on. So what I want to tell you and your listeners is that it's never too late. As long as you have breath, you can change.
Yeah.
And at this very moment, and it starts with breath and breathing differently. You know, we overbreathe. Actually, we overeat, we overbreathe, and slowing down our breath, slowing down our thoughts, tuning into our heart. There's so much at any age that we can reverse.
Yep. No, brilliant point. Lots of people don't think they can change, and then you're a very good example of someone who can turn around things and can do it at any age. So no, brilliant points. So tell us a little bit, what's your day like? So you mentioned you start, is it 5 o'clock in the morning for?
5 a.m. Let me tell you why it's at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Because that's when it's quiet. And the hour before the sun rises, there's stillness on the earth that
Yeah.
I can dial into. And I've been, you know, having dreams at night, and it's just nice to go empty, to start the day with a clean slate. And really, the 5 o'clock doesn't happen unless I've done my evening preparations, gone to bed early, taken care. So it really starts the night before, setting
Yep.
it up for a 5 o'clock rising. And so, you know, 40 minutes of just stillness, being in pure awareness, uncluttered mentally, observing, noticing my tendencies or my urges or what's kind of keeps coming up, and settling that down so that I can really be focused and be in control. My executive functioning is on par. I'm not reacting, I'm responding. Um, it's coming from a place where you have your thinking body fully engaged.
Yep.
And then, so this morning, then I do breath work. And the breath work are breath holds. I love to hum because it produces nitric oxide. And the nitric oxide dilates the blood vessels and the capillaries, so you have more blood flow, more oxygenation. When you hold the breath, the spleen actually starts pumping out more hemoglobin and red blood cells. So breath holds. But one of the things that makes it really fun is then this morning, my husband and a few of his friends, we all jump in the pool. Actually, before I get in the pool, I jump on the trampoline. I do rebounding.
Yep.
And because I think, Damien, that there's a conspiracy. We might think that we are matter, but we're really not. That we're waveforms. And as part of our waveforms, right, we have a heartbeat, we breathe, and those are all in wave patterns. So I've already jump-started my wave form with
Yep.
the breath work. And the thoughts, slowing down the thoughts, that's affecting the waveform. But then the rebounding, it's interval training. So this morning it was just for five rounds, I went hard for a minute, and I like to flip. I do like round offs and back handsprings, and the guys they're not doing that. So they're in the pool doing what they call drowning raps, and I let them to do their drowning raps, and I do my rebounding. But then I relax completely between each minute and let my heart rate recover. So I'm energizing my waveform.
Yeah.
And then I jumped in the pool with the guys, and we do underwater weight workouts. It's a pool workout. I don't know. Have you ever heard of that, Damien?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Have you heard of Laird Hamilton?
Yep.
He's a neighbor. He's a legendary surfer.
Yep.
So what we do is we take these weights underwater, and we have a pool, and it's 12 feet deep, so it's ideal for this. So I go down to the 12 feet with like a 15-pound weight, and the guys will do two 15-pound weights. And I take this weight and I jump up from the bottom of the pool up to the top. And so it really activates that spring, that waveform that we were talking about earlier, that double S curve.
Sure.
And it's because there's power in between our hips and our rib cage. And it tones everything. It's awesome. So I get to the very top, and then I pull the weight down, and take a breath, and then sink back down. So it's intense breath work.
Yep.
Because you're not breathing when you're 12 feet under.
No.
So so we did that, and a series of different exercises underwater with load.
Yep.
It's super easy on the joints too. And then I do handstands, and then I taught a class. Damien, I try to every Thursday do a Insta live class.
Yep.
So you can watch it. The three guys, they joined me. Since we're in social isolation, the classes are small. So I called the class this morning the Three Wise Men.
Okay.
Because they, to activate their double S curve, it means that they activate their glutes, they stick their butt out, there's a whole tapering. I think there's a concept in the athletic world that our abs, we need to strengthen our abs.
Yep.
But in this bowstring concept, the abs are soft actually, and we pull away from the hips go back, and the ribs go wide and full.
Yep.
So then there's a tapering in the waist, and the shoulders are even wider. And when I was doing yoga, my shoulders drooped like that.
Yep.
And so with the rib cage full, the shoulders are on top. So this is the postural movement that we did.
Okay.
So you and your audience can check it out today.
Cool.
It's called The Three Wise Men, and all the guys from Full Workout did it. They did great.
No, very good. So let's move on to, well, now we can talk a little bit about, like, as I mentioned before, for our interview, how a lot of people, when they reach 40, they're going, oh my God, life is all over. But, you know, now at 50, 54, is it? So you're
55.
55. So,
Yeah.
so now you've proved that life isn't all over. It's like still plenty to go, and you're waiting until you reach 120. So what would you say to all those people who reach 40 or approaching 40 again, you know, or viewing it negatively? So what would you say to them?
Yeah, it just takes me back to when I was turning 40, and most of my days I had a migraine, and
Yeah,
it sucks. I mean, it's the worst. It was hell. Why would I want to live to 120,
yeah,
right? It was, yeah, a world of pain, and I wasn't able to move or breathe or like I can today.
yeah.
And so what I'd like to encourage everyone, and this is really why I'm doing this interview, Damien. This is why I'm writing the book, is that's the message. I want to give you hope that if I can do it, you can do it too.
Yep. Oh, very good. So now tell us, what's your definition of living your best life?
Is following your heart. That we all have in our hearts. We have dreams. We have, I don't know where it comes from, but when we tune it out, that's when the pain starts. And when we follow our heart, that's when the healing begins. That we're all here for a reason. We have a purpose. And as we tune into our heart, we hear it and follow that. And I'd love to encourage all of your listeners to really follow those deep inner leadings.
No, I'm definitely on board with you. But how do you, so I guess the question is, a lot of people would go, sounds good, like it, on board, but we have day-to-day reality. I have to pay the bills. I've got all these commitments. So how do I listen to my heart and follow my passions when I have all of these other things to take care of? So what would be your advice to them?
My advice would be to go to bed early, to turn the TV off, to turn, the entertainment that when you go to bed early and you rise early, you have quiet time. I think as far as exercise, I didn't make it a priority. And now, I think the most important thing is posture, which we don't even have to set aside time for an exercise routine when throughout our day. And if you go to my Three Wise Men, in the class, I show you how to sit, how to walk, even a good position to sleep that empowers us. That, I mentioned earlier about our fascia and
Yep.
integrity. So as we move in our day, whatever we're doing, we have the option to engage or put on I'll call them our fascia suits, right? Wonder Woman and Superman strong. So whatever we're doing and opening up our heart and our spine, I think posture is so much, it affects our attitude in our life. So no matter what we have, what we're doing in our life, even if we're sitting at a computer, which I showed in my class this morning, we can engage our Wonder Woman, Superman fascia suits.
Yeah.
And I would start with that, because then as that's engaged, we're more connected with our abs, because when you have the abs in um, they're in their right place.
Yep.
The appetite becomes more natural. When we go into the C curve, then everything's compressed and we're not as tuned in. So I would say posture. I would have never thought that it was so important, but that's, I think, fundamental to being, to living, to embodying, being in physical body on the planet right now. And it's
Okay.
also great for the immune system. So
Yeah. Okay. So the key is take care of your health and well-being, and then everything else will fall into place after that.
yeah, and engage your fascia, engage your posture, and lift up the head, open the spine, just as you move through the day.
Yep. No, very good.
You'll, yeah.
So to finish up, what would be 3 life lessons you've learned that you would like to share with other people? Things you think would be of value, what you've learned, and then will help them going forward.
Well, I was thinking last night that the 3 hardest things for me in this lifetime that I've come up against. The first I told you about sugar, was
Yep.
letting go of the sugar. And, I think as far as if there's 3 things, that would be one. And that it's a great opportunity to learn detachment, to be able to get beyond our cravings and desires.
Yep.
Isn't that what the Buddha said? Something about, all suffering, it's just being a slave to our cravings and desires. And that when we end our cravings and desires, we end our suffering, right?
Yes. No, very true.
So that was the first thing.
Yep.
And then the second greatest challenge in my life was stilling my mind. When I started yoga 7 years ago, just it was constant. I had a busy mind, and I couldn't be still. I couldn't be the witness, the observer. I
Yep.
couldn't sit back and observe my life. There was too much going on, and it was the habit of thinking. And so the second thing I would say is to really, really stay with that, because I want to give you hope that every time you meditate, you sit down, even if it's for 5 minutes or maybe 20 minutes. If you get up to 45 minutes, then it's kind of like, when you run for 15 minutes, it gets a lot easier.
Yep.
The same thing, meditation gets a lot easier. But if that's very difficult for you, I think it was the hardest thing outside of the sugar. But at that point, it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, was attempt to still my busy mind. And it's
Yep.
still ongoing, but it's incredibly valuable to be able to do that. So that's number 2. And number 3 would be then when we move into mindfulness, when we move into awareness, then we can change our posture. And when we can change our posture, we can change our life, because our attitude, our emotions, somatically are held in our fascia. And so that would be the third point.
No, brilliant. So, well, thank you very much, Shanti. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. I'm sure a lot of
Thanks
people will
for
get
being here.
a lot of value from this. So for anyone who wants to find you online and learn a little bit more about your posture and movement teaching, where can they find you?
I meant lettuce flow. Like, have lettuce for dinner and flow with it. Lettuce flow.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, thanks, Damien. Thanks for your time. Thanks for reaching out. I really appreciate the opportunity to share.